Hi. Well, let's see. Let's turn the camera on. It's time to record a few things. Let's see. Well, it's kind of embarrassing. I crashed on my motorcycle today. Don't worry, it wasn't a bad crash. It wasn't even barely moving. It was more like a parking lot fail. Not even that. I was backing out of my brother's driveway, and it was like one of the first rides I've had on the bike since I picked it up last night. All I did was just drove it home. I didn't have insurance. I just drove it home, which is like 5 blocks away. And so, but I got insurance this morning, and wow, insurance is cheap. Amazing. Good coverage, really cheap. Less than $100 a year for liability and coverage and collision. It's good to get old. 80 bucks a year. 88. So anyway, well, first of all, riding a motorcycle, just to bring you guys, if you don't know the story, when I grew up with motorcycles, that's, a lot of people say that kind of thing. Let me close this, the noise back there. And as a kid, dirt bikes, and then when I became in my 30s, I got a street bike. Succession of street bikes, wound up with a BMW eventually, which was my heartthrob motorcycle. And hold on, let me grab a beer here. It's starting to go down. I have this huge beer supply that, they've got the High Life, the Miller High Life. I don't like that so much. I like the Miller Genuine Draft. Someone suggested this. Several people suggested it on YouTube and or Facebook, so I've been going with it. And this is the twist off top, but I have to watch out it doesn't bubble over. Sorry, I'm in my pajamas. I just got home. And then I wound up with the BMW. I rode that for 3 years. Loved it. Toured a lot of the Western United States on that bike. Became an extension of my body. Commuter bike. I rode it all the time. It was really just an extension of my body. It's, the idea that money can't buy happiness. I discovered in this lifetime that that was not true when it came to that motorcycle. It was truly happiness, which I sold. As soon as I found out my wife was pregnant with Emily, I put the bike on the chopping block and sold it for basically the reason that I didn't want to, I just thought it was irresponsible to have a bike as a young parent, or not so young parent, as a parent of young children in particular. So I didn't have a bike for the last 11 years while I was in Japan. My resolve was that I wasn't going to get a bike until Emily was an adult. Well, when I'm coming back to Japan this time, I was actually planning to get a car, and I'm not trying to put this on my wife or anything like this, but it was actually her suggestion that she said, you know what you really want to get another motorcycle. Emily's 13 now. Yeah, probably not the smartest move. I know that, but I'm not known for my smartest moves. I adventure in the wilderness alone, which isn't the smartest move either, and I tend to wipe from back to front, which isn't such a smart move either. Well, I'm not a woman, so it doesn't matter, I guess. Anyways, back to my crash. So I got this bike. It's a big old heavy. It's a KTM 2004 950 Adventure, standard Adventure, not the S model. S for the suspension, but it is totally tricked out. It's a dual sport bike. It's on and off road, just like my old GS. And if you haven't seen the past videos, I couldn't get the GS because I basically don't have any credit in the United States, and I couldn't qualify to buy it on credit, so I had to search around for something else, and then this bike showed up, which is serendipity. I mean, this is exactly the type of bike I need. It's a little more macho than I'm used to. That's why it scared me as soon as I got it. As soon as I started riding it last night, I was scared of this thing. I knew that this was the type of bike that could get me into trouble. It's kind of reminding me of my brother's Suzuki Bandit, 1200cc Bandit, that, 1200, yeah, CC, 1200, yeah. And that was a badass bike. Not a total sport bike. I'm not into those things. Those are widowmakers. Although, accidents with bikes are largely due to, not observing your environment around you and getting run over by someone who runs through a red light or is turning lanes into your lane and you don't see them, all that kind of stuff. Why do I divergence? So anyway, I have this bike, and so I got it, and I rode it up to my brother's place, parked it in the garage, and he's got this kind of garage, or the driveway leading up to the garage. It's kind of the garage that's on an angle, slopes down to a hill it hits this dip at the bottom, and it kind of goes up the hill. And his buddy was there, Dave was there, and I decided to go out, and and this bike's really heavy. And I knew there was a kind of a gap at the bottom where the things hit like this, and when the bike goes onto that gap, it's really tall. I'm barely on tippy toes. I mean, it's really tall. Then when normally the ground is like this, and the wheel is here, and another wheel is here, and you can barely touch your tippy toes. In this case, it was like this. And you could really, and as soon as the bike starts to go over, it starts to fall over. Anyway, I backed up. I couldn't go far enough. I knew that I was getting myself into trouble when I did this. And then I turned the steering wheel and I hit it, and I started to turn. And another characteristic of this bike that's different from the GS, it's notable for this bike, is its small turning radius. And it didn't turn far enough, and I knew I was going to go over the curb, and I didn't want to go over the curb, you know, at least not yet. And there was a postman there, or a guy that was an undercover postman, so he said. And so guess what happened is, I realized that, I hit the brake to stop, I'm not used to the suspension, the forks dove in, I went down to touch the ground, the ground is in this gap, bike was over, went over that critical point, and down it went. And it went down hard, bike wasn't damaged. I was damaged a little bit. I'm walking with a little bit of a limp. I hurt my leg, and I hurt my arm, and I burned my finger. You can probably see. Not on that. I burned my finger trying to adjust the idle, and I reached up, and instead of grabbing the idle adjuster, I grabbed a finger full of hot exhaust pipe. So 3 injuries in one day. One, the bike actually went over, which is the type of thing with my GS on street. It only went over. Never on street. I never, in 3 years that I had it, and my other bike I never went over on street. This is the first time I've ever been over on street. I went over a couple of times in dirt with the GS, but that's to be expected. So there you go. My brother, I was a little gun shy after that. My brother, he told me, just get on the bike, go for a ride, go around the mountain, you know. And that was the best advice possible. I got out there, I got on it, I did some twisties a little bit, you know, gently, carefully learning the ropes of going through the turns with this particular machine. Its tires are kind of a dual spark tire, so they're not total street tires. It's got a different type of traction, a power up the yin-yang. You really got to learn to control that power. Took it on the freeway, took it on the streets, took it on all over the place, and by mid-afternoon I felt I was back. But I was back with a healthy, thorough, deep respect for this machine. This is a machine that can hurt me. I could get hurt on this if I'm not careful. I need to spend as much time on it as possible to learn its idiosyncrasies and to get used to it. So those of you who might choose to criticize me for poor decision, I'll accept that criticism and agree with it. Yeah, it's not, you know, there's no question of it. You know, there's no question of it. Car safer than a bike. Hiking in group is safer than hiking alone. Staying at home is safer than. Yeah, I'm getting silly now. Get the point. So I'm wrestling with this. I'm wrestling with this sense of irresponsibility. Yet this passion that I have and this desire. And it's practical. I mean, I filled up the thing it had some gas in the tank. I filled it up. It was $6.55. Gas prices the way they are, the commuting I'm going to be doing. I think what I'm probably going to do, don't tell Lyle this, don't tell my brother this, because he's a KTM fan. I love this bike already, but probably stick with it for 6 months or so, or at least till my wife and daughter get here and get settled. And if I feel like it's more than that riding is not something that I should be doing, that I'm actually in danger, I'll probably get rid of it and get a car. If I don't feel that's the case, if I feel like I can get my back on the saddle, so to speak, then I'll probably turn it in for a GS, a BMW, which is, that bike is, compared to this bike, that bike practically babysits the rider. Although, like I said before, it's not what you do necessarily that it's going to get you killed. It's the whole conspiring elements all around you. You know, I was a driving instructor here in California. It was part of my job to train drivers and motorcyclists about the dangers and the rules of the practice of defensive driving. So I like to think I'm pretty well versed in that. Been a while though. So there you go. Got the new bike. A little scared. There's nothing about this transition has been easy. this whole thing, it's been definitely hard. Much harder than the last time we came over. I don't remember feeling this way. I don't remember having these difficulties. But it's like a difficulty that is one that I wouldn't regret. I don't regret. I do. I know that I can get through this. In some ways, I'm really glad that I'm going through these things on my own so that I can figure my way through them ahead of my family getting here so that they can have a more comfortable. It sounds altruistic. I guess it is. I don't want them to experience this. And I think it would be easier if I was with them, but I wouldn't want them to go through a lot of these odd, weird things. So hopefully we'll get things settled, get us a place, make the transition nice and easy for them when they get here. So there's my backstory. You guys have a good day. I'll talk to you later. And tomorrow, I'm going to go out and have a brunch with the family.